Good afternoon and welcome to APTN National News. I'm Savannah Kelly. A new report released this week is highlighting the intersection between the disappearance of Indigenous women and human trafficking in Canada. According to the report by Thomson Reuters news agency, Winnipeg, Edmonton, and the Prince Albert, Regina, Saskatoon triangle had the highest numbers of MMIWG cases. The report says Indigenous women can swiftly go from missing to appearing on sex ads, with Edmonton and Ottawa showing significant connections to the sex ad ecosystem. The report also states that Manitoba and Saskatchewan may be feeding victims to the flourishing Alberta oil and mining industries. The research used geospatial analysis to uncover trends of disappearances and sex ads featuring Indigenous women and girls across Canada to examine connections. In a statement, the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs said the information is a painful confirmation of what families, survivors, and nations have been telling governments for decades. The AMC also called out the proximity of man camps to First Nations. The AMC says major projects continue to get the green light without enforceable safety guarantees or protections for our people, adding, quote, "That's what colonialism looks like in 2025. Saskatchewan RCMP has released its annual crime statistics ahead of the national report from Statistics Canada expected later this year. One concerning trend is the high rate of intimate partner violence. APTN's Rachel May has more on that story.
Interpersonal violence, as we know, is a prevalent problem right across the country, right across society.
Sergeant Nick Smith with the Saskatchewan RCMP Interpersonal Violence Unit says intimate partner violence, or IPV, makes up a large portion of the reports of violence they received in 2024. Smith says in Saskatchewan, over a quarter of all violent crimes are related to intimate partner violence, with offenses like criminal harassment, stalking, threatening phone calls, and marital violence making up many of those reports. He says that the RCMP does not track ethnicities of intimate partner violence unless it's a homicide, but the Mounties and other frontline agencies recognize there is a relationship between IPV and missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls.
We do know that through our other justice partners, reporting of intimate partner violence, that Indigenous women and girls are typically overrepresented. Our stats report on the number of victims of interpersonal violence across RCMP jurisdiction, which makes up a significant portion of the province. Often we see higher rates of intimate partner violence or in northern and remote communities, and this area would of course include many Indigenous communities and First Nations.
In reports from Statistics Canada between 2009 and 2021, homicide rates against First Nations, Métis, and Inuit women and girls were 6 times higher than for non-Indigenous women and girls. Statistics Canada is set to release a national crime report later this year. Rachel May, APTN National News, Saskatoon.
The head of the Chiefs of Ontario says Ontario's Ford government needs to do a better job when doing consultation meetings over the province's controversial Bill 5 legislation. Bill 5 has sparked a number of First Nations protests in the province, including when it was passed at the Ontario legislature this spring. A letter sent out by the province stated it will host a number of meetings with First Nations on the legislation this summer, including 2 stops in Toronto and 1 in each of London, Sudbury, and Thunder Bay. But Assembly of First Nations Regional Chief for Ontario, Abram Benedict, says none of the meetings are on the North's Ring of Fire, the area the government intends to use the legislation in order to fast-track the mining of critical minerals.
A number of them are very northern communities, and a number of them are north of Thunder Bay, and so it's not cheap for community leadership and technicians when we talk about regulation development to travel into Thunder Bay, and so there needs to be a bit more effort on the part of the government to make better efforts to meet with the folks in some more northern locations.
A housing nonprofit in Whitehorse is now in charge of a supportive housing building. The organization replaces the building's former operator, a social services NGO, which has faced public backlash in recent years for the operation of the building. Sarah Connors tells us how the change of operators came to be and how it's going so far.
This 16-unit supportive housing building in downtown Whitehorse has a new housing model and a new operator. The Yukon government, which owns the building, selected housing nonprofit the Safe at Home Society as its new operator earlier this spring. The organization officially took over the building on July 1st.
As an organization, we're really invested in, building out the continuum of supports available to individuals.
The building was previously operated by social services NGO Connective, which has faced scrutiny in recent years over the overdose deaths that took place at the building under its watch. But the Yukon government says the issue at hand wasn't Connective, but its Housing First model. Housing First provides housing to vulnerable people with no readiness requirements like sobriety or treatment. An independent review of the program last year found challenges with things like wellness checks and guest management. Meechin says those challenges stem from the fact leases under the Housing First model fell under the Residential Landlord and Tenant Act, or RLTA.
Connective had to be following all of the various sort of protocols around, being navigating that legislation as they were trying to provide supports.
At the same time, the government's funding agreement with Connective to operate the building was coming to an end.
So that enabled us to, or prompted us to go out and look at what proposals could come from the community that would align with some of the learnings that we had from the review of Housing First.
Meechin says Safe at Home is now operating the building under a supportive housing model, which is considered transitional housing and doesn't fall under the RLTA. That means it can implement stricter safety measures.
More monitoring of who's coming and going, being able to check in with folks, do wellness checks.
According to Meechin, there's already been positive feedback from residents and neighbors living nearby.
People are noticing that things are quieter, that at times they feel safer.
Connective said in a statement it's disappointed the government went with another operator, but it's proud of the progress it made with the former program. Safe at Home's contract for the building will be in place for the next 3 years. Sarah Connors, APTN National News, Whitehorse.
We need to step aside for a quick break. Coming up, a Métis wrestler has his eyes set on Olympic gold. Welcome back to APTN National News. A First Nations author of children's books is celebrating her 5th book on the shelves. Her books are becoming increasingly popular, and as the author tells us, they come to light in an unusual way. Here's Annette Francis with that story.
Is it the tobacco that I place, or with whom I share my space? Is it the medicines that I burn, or the yoga time that I yearn?
Nikki Solomon is Métis and Anishinaabe. Her father later acquired status from his community of Batchewana, where she is also now a member. It's one of the inspirations for her children's book, Indigenous.
That story is kind of my journey, but I know so many other people can relate to it. And we use that book a lot with junior intermediate grades at the beginning of the year when we talk about identity and getting to know our kids and building relationships and connections, because there's a lot of kids that can relate to being mixed.
Solomon's writing career began during COVID in an unconventional sort of way with her first book, Bubbly Beth, about a girl who loves bubbles. The idea came on a sleepless night.
But toss and turn, could not get back to sleep, so I thought I better just write it down. So I wrote it down, and then in the morning my husband said, you didn't sleep last night. Why not? And I said, well, I think I wrote a story. And he said, oh, why? I said, I don't know why. But he said, well, let me hear it. And I said, okay, because I had just intended on writing it and putting it away and not looking at it again, probably. So I read it to him and read it to the kids, and he said, I think that's good. I think you could be an author.
Solomon says she likes to think her grandmother played a part in it.
My grandmother had passed away, and I couldn't go to her funeral because it was COVID. And I like to think that she helped me write this book. And so when I researched, I realized, okay, I can't afford it at this time, but I'll just keep it in the back of my mind. And my dad had come and said he settled my grandma's estate, and he had just happened to have some money that she thought she would want us to have. And so the amount that he gave me was exactly the amount needed to publish Bubbly Beth.
According to Solomon, the response to her books has been great.
When I came to Durham, and we had all these self-identified students that were sitting there, and a lot of them just new to this identity, and if they didn't go to a powwow and they didn't know about the medicine wheel, they didn't see themselves as being Indigenous, they didn't see themselves in those books. So I wanted to kind of normalize, humanize, and represent Indigenous characters in books so that a lot of people can kind of connect with that.
Since then, she's written 4 more books, all during those sleepless nights.
If you locked me in a room and told me to write a book, I might be there for years. I might never write a book. Like, they come to me, they find me when I'm sleeping. So all of my books have been written in one night.
Solomon's latest book, All My Relations, was just released. She says 2 more are in the works. Annette Francis, APTN National News, Scugog, First Nation.
Red River Métis wrestler Connor Church moved to Montreal 4 years ago to train at the Reinitz Wrestling Center. The club trains Olympians, world champions, and young wrestlers looking to make it on the world stage. As Savannah Craig reports, this athlete from Winnipeg is training to compete in the 2028 Summer Olympics.
Crushing opponents is what Connor Church does best. He's just 22, but he's already won the Senior National Championships and the U23 National Championships. This summer, he was inducted into the North American Indigenous Athletic Hall of Fame, and in 2023 received the Tom Longboat Award, which celebrates Indigenous athletes for their contributions to sports in Canada.
I remember before I moved out here, I never thought or if I did win a national championship, that'd be the coolest thing ever. I've won 6 of them now.
Church moved to Montreal to train after his high school coach recommended the Montreal Wrestling Club. He trains with 2 coaches at the Sylvan Adams YMYWHA Community Center in Montreal. One of them is David Zilberman. He teaches Church more than physical strength, but also how to manage the psychological and emotional part of fighting.
There's a lot of stress involved with wrestling. You're essentially fighting somebody. So being able to regulate your emotions and manage them in a way that you can show up in a match and be alert and ready to go, but not too much where you're out of control and it just becomes chaos.
You are going through fight or flight every time, and you have to make that conscious kind of decision or have that mental discipline to realize I'm doing this, I'm not going to run away. You have to confront kind of this problem, this obstacle head on.
Church's love for wrestling came from a young age with encouragement from his father.
From 3 or 2 years old, I was doing karate, and then I was boxing, and then it was jiu-jitsu, and then it was kind of just every sort of martial art he can get me in.
Connor's brother, Ryder Church, also shares his family's love of martial arts. Ryder is also Connor's training partner.
It helps me keep consistent training, because even on the days I feel bad or, I have a bad day or I'm upset, he'll train or he'll come to practice. I'm like, oh, I gotta stay on it.
After all his wins, Church says he now has his eyes set on larger goals, including the 2028 Summer Olympics.
I want to do stuff internationally and be an international competitor. That just wasn't even in my way of thinking before.
Savannah Craig, APTN National News, Montreal.
2 Indigenous wrestlers who each competed in the Pan American Games are now giving back to the sport. Recently, the pair held a wrestling camp, sharing the world-class skills and passing them along to youth in North Central Regina. CTV's Brittany Poitras tells us more about those trying out for the sport for the very first time.
Hunter Lee is a World Junior bronze medalist and a member of the Musqueam First Nation. He co-led the Next Gen Wrestlers Camp at the Mamawayatin Center on the weekend. For him, this camp was about more than just wrestling.
I'm always happy to come in and give back to all the kids that are kind of I guess in a similar spot to me where they're just trying to train with what they can.
Lee's path began in a small Manitoba town with limited access to resources, but he and his brother still found ways to learn the sport.
We were training for world championships in our backyard. And we would steal mats from the school so that we could train in our backyard without rolling in the dirt kind of things.
This wrestling camp was organized by Jackson Cerna from Flying Dust First Nation. He got to know Lee during their time on Team Canada together, after both competing and medaling in the Pan Am Games. The pair now want to create space for youth to train with mentors and each other.
And I hope for what wrestling brings to the community is to keep kids in school and on the right path and have the right role models to look up to and to talk to.
The camp was designed for all skill levels, and for some youth like Everly, it was their first time trying the sport.
All the instructors, they're really sweet and they're not pushing you and stuff. And I just like hanging out with other people, making new friends.
Lee is an undefeated professional MMA fighter with hopes to join the UFC in the near future. He says giving kids a chance to try wrestling is a full circle moment for him.
It's what you do, I guess. I don't know. You just you get good at something and then you give back to the people coming up because people helped you when you were younger, so.
Organizers hope to turn this one-day camp into a full-time wrestling club that will allow North Central youth to chase their goals on and off the mat. For Indigenous Circle, I'm Brittany Poitras in Regina.
We now want to tell you about this week's web poll question. Prime Minister Mark Carney has now been in office for 3 months. Do you approve of the job he's doing so far? Yes, no, or unsure? You can go to our website aptnnews.ca/poll to cast your ballot. We need to take one more short break. Still to come, we speak with a young musician who's being featured on a new series by Amazon Music called Northern Echoes. On the East Coast, 22 degrees and sunshine for Halifax, 18 in St. John's. Nain, rainy and 6 degrees, 17 in Kuujjuaq. Quebec City, 20 degrees there, Gaspé, 18. Windsor, 19 and sunny there, Sault Ste. Marie, 16 degrees. Kapuskasing, sunny and 17, Big Trout Lake, 16 degrees. Churchill, 20 and mostly sunny there, Norway House, 19. Brandon, cloudy and 16 degrees, Barons River, 20 degrees and sunny. Estevan, 19 there, Saskatoon, mostly sunny and 18. Stony Rapids, mix of sun and clouds, 14 degrees, Uranium City, plus 18. 35 in sun for Fort Chip, 32 degrees in Fort McMurray. Calgary, 27 and sunny, Edmonton, 31. Penticton, rainy and 34, Canal, 33. Smithers, rainy and 28, Fort Nelson, 29 and rain. Rainy in Watson Lake at 27 degrees, rain in Rock River as well at 9. Wati, rainy and 25, Yellowknife, 26. Rainy and 14 in Colville Lake, Paulatuck, 16 degrees. Rain and 22 in Baker Lake, Nauyat, 15 degrees. Aglulic, rainy and 11 degrees, Clyde River, plus 8. Earlier this month, Amazon Music Canada released a new video series called Northern Echoes, which spotlights undiscovered Canadian talent. One of those featured is Baron May, who hails from St. Teresa Point First Nation in northern Manitoba. We caught up with Baron earlier to talk about his experience, but first, take a listen to his song, Maria. Thanks so much for speaking with us today, Baron. We first met you in 2024 when you were opening up for Mariana's Trench at your home community's annual Bannock Festival, and now you're being featured on Amazon Music. Can you tell us how you got involved with this project?
Well, there was an open submission that I got an email for, and I didn't think much of it. So when I applied to it, I wasn't expecting to get accepted or anything. But I ended up getting accepted, which is pretty amazing.
Absolutely. And we heard your original song, Maria, that's being featured on Amazon Music's series Northern Echoes. Where does the inspiration come from for you to write your songs?
Well, when I got the idea of writing the song Maria, I was just like, I don't know. I was just playing around, looking for the chords, or I was just playing around. But then I thought of writing a song for myself as a reminder, a reminder to myself to keep following the path that I was shown. And I wrote a song about it, and it's a really beautiful reminder to me.
Awesome. And you're quite an inspiration for the younger generation, and you're still quite young yourself. How does it feel to be showcasing that you can work towards your dreams?
Being able to have that is like, I don't know, like at such a young age, I didn't expect myself to be here. Like I thought I'd still be focused on school and stuff. I still am, but it's like I didn't expect to be doing two big things at once.
Absolutely. And finally, Baron, what's next for you?
I'm gonna be working more on my music and finishing school, and I don't know, just basically getting better at what I'm doing.
Right on. Those are good goals to have for sure. Thank you so much, Baron, for taking some time to speak with us today, and we look forward to seeing what you do next.
Thank you.
And you can watch and hear the full song on Amazon Music and their YouTube and Instagram pages. That's all the time we have for your afternoon edition of APTN National News this Thursday. I'm Savannah Kelly. Marcy Miigwech, thank you for joining us. Dennis Ward will be back here in a few hours with a full look at the day's news. Bye for now.